So up next then we have Martin, and again as a very large jump in topic, we are now going over to neuroscience, so we're looking at the use of artificial intelligence, AI, to detect and analyze fat tissue. So good luck, Martin, and on you go.
So hello, I'm Martin. I'm a fourth year neuroscience student, and today I'm going to be talking about how I've used artificial intelligence in my own research, and particularly to detect and analyze fat tissue, and also to just give an overview of the current landscape of the field of AI at large. So I'm going to start off by showing you these beautiful artworks by this artist called Botto. Pieces similar to this by this artist recently sold at auction for over £1 million. But I think the most interesting thing about this artist is, in actuality, they are an artificial intelligence. And I think this is really juxtaposed to what we commonly think of as AI and their capabilities. So this is Sophia the robot. And for a lot of us, she was our first exposure to AI. She's often sort of carted around tech conferences around the world and answers questions and says ominous phrases and stuff. And I think from this and TV and pop culture, we're often fed this sort of linear narrative about what AI is and its progression and where it's going. So either we'll create these cutesy machines that will make our lives easier, but are ultimately sort of like alien and subordinate to us, or one day we'll be greeted by evil robot overlords. Hopefully, over the next couple of minutes, you'll realize this couldn't be further from the truth. In actuality, AI is already present in our lives. So, like in Bottle, it's present in art and music, but also there's applications in medicine, particularly in cancer detection and images of breast tissue. Even in crime prevention and naturally robotics, AI has seen extensive use. And I think what I really want to drive home about all these fields is that advancements in one area of AI often affects the others. They don't exist in isolation. They're not these islands of research, but they exist in this big ecosystem. So how this all relates to me is I'm currently interning with the Domingos Group at the University of Oxford, and their lab deals with the neuroimmune mechanisms underlying fat metabolism and fat storage and general perspectives on obesity. They do some really, really cool research. So if you get the chance, I would definitely check them out. They're headed up by Professor Anna Domingos, and I've been working with her and a PhD student in her lab, Emma Haberman, for the past couple of months. So a few months ago, Emma came to me with a problem. She said, Martin, I'm trying to figure out how a particular gene affects fat storage in mice. And to do that, I'm taking thermal images of mice with and without this gene. I'm finding the temperature of two specific regions, the back of the neck and the tail, and comparing it between the conditions. But using this approach generates thousands and thousands of images. And at the moment, I'm analyzing each of them by hand, and it just takes so long. Anna, the principal investigator, mentioned that you were really interested in AI and machine learning and how we can use it. Could you create a program or create some kind of deep learning solution for this? And I said, yep, sure, I can do that. Just give me a couple of weeks. Suffice it to say, I did not know how to do that. As I say, I study neuroscience, I have very minimal coding knowledge. And so I was really worried that I'd bitten off more than I could chew. But to my surprise, there are many ready to go AI algorithms online for free and code repository websites like GitHub, and they can do just about anything that you can think of. So, for example, there's voice generation software where you feed the program audio of someone speaking and it can replicate their voice to say whatever you'd like. Or there's applications in natural language processing. This deals with um, getting computers to understand language as humans do. And AI applications within this field have been used extensively within linguistics. And of importance to this presentation, computer vision applications. So this field deals with teaching AI to analyze and detect objects within images and to come to conclusions about these objects. So within the computer vision field of AI research, there was one program algorithm in particular that really suited my needs, and that was the MASC RCNN. That is Mask Recurrent Convolutional Neural Network. That's quite a mouthful, but more on what that means later. And it was developed by Facebook AI and a research group called Matterport. Now, this particular version of Mask RCNN had been shown over 200,000 images, told what those images contained, and was therefore able to detect over 150 unique objects and images that it had never seen before. and that could go from the inanimate to the animate to the biological. So as we can see here, the little colored regions are objects that it has detected in these images after being trained with 200,000 images. So we can see here it's detecting like elephants and people, even car damage, glasses, and of importance to me, biological material. So here in this microscopy slide, it's detecting cell nuclei. Below that, it's scanning tumors within MRI scans. That feeds into what I was talking about earlier with medicinal applications. So I thought, great, this could be what I need. So I downloaded it and put in a couple images of the mice with the regions that I wanted it to detect annotated, just about under 10, I think. And just so the algorithm could get used to what I'm wanting it to do. And then after it had done that, I said, okay, I'm going to give you this image that you've never seen before. Please tell me where the neck and the tail are. And it gave me this. So the red regions are where it has detected something, be it the neck or the tail. And as you can see, it's an abject failure. At this point, I was a little bit disheartened, but in actuality, this result really illustrates how AI learning works. So our current AI deep learning programs are actually inspired by the human brain. So this is the neuron or the brain cell, and they connect to each other and form large networks that give rise to our ability to think and talk and walk. And this network-based architecture forms the basis of the digital neural network, which is the code that underpins our current AI programs. So as you can see in the biological network, the dark clumps are neurons that interconnect with other neurons around them. Similarly, in the digital realm, these dark circles represent an artificial neuron that connects to preceding and proceeding neurons. So AI network architecture is composed of 3 layers: an input layer, a hidden layer or layers, and an output layer. Data is fed into the input layer, where it's transcribed into sort of raw information. And this raw information is used in calculations within the hidden layer. And the output layer then decides what the summation of these calculations mean. So it would then decide, okay, in our case with the images, it would decide, is this image a mouse or a car or an elephant? So data goes in through these layers and then comes out. So for example, say we gave a neural network an image of a dog. The data from this image is extracted and fed into the neural network and activates a certain path of artificial neurons. So the data is used in calculations and then given to the output. And in this case, this specific pathway within this neural network represents a dog. So this information has activated this set of neurons and the network has concluded this is a dog. However, equally, this information may produce a different pathway that may come to a different conclusion, such like that this image is a cat, which is obviously wrong. So what we mean by deep learning is increasing the likelihood correct pathways will be strengthened or enhanced and diminishing or weakening the incorrect pathways. And how we do this is by showing the algorithm as many images as possible that contain what we want it to recognize. So in doing so, it knows the conclusion it has to reach, but learns to rely on pathways that come to that conclusion, if that makes sense. So keeping that in mind, I went back to the drawing board and realized showing the algorithm 2 or 3 images is not going to cut it. So I went back and annotated over 2,000 images instead, each with the neck and tail regions highlighted, and then fed that into the algorithm and hoped that it would carve out those neural pathways that relate to correct predictions. And this process took about 3 or 4 days. But at the end of that second time around, I got a new input image. So my algorithm had not seen this image before. And I said, okay, take this and tell me where the neck and the tail are. And it gave me this. This is the output image. So as you can see, the blue region denotes where it's detected the neck, and the red region denotes where it's detected the tail. The little numbers next to them are its predictive ability. So this is 0.97, meaning the algorithm is 97% sure that this is the neck or tail. And as you can see, it's pretty spot on. It's very similar to how I annotated the original images. Moreover, this algorithm was able to detect and analyze these regions regardless of the position of the mouse or if one of these regions were like obstructed. But most importantly, it could do this exponentially faster than a human. So we'd managed to do it. We managed to train an algorithm to recognize the regions that we wanted. So from here, all that was required was a few lines of code to translate these image predictions into data. So here we have an output file showing the image ID that was used in the detection, the regions that it detected, and the temperature of those regions. So for the first image, the neck region was 38.4 degrees and the tail region was 18.47. Now, I was able to upload this entire pipeline, so the detection and this output to online to the website that I got the original algorithm from. And when it's here, anyone else can download it and edit it and change it as they see fit. And that use may well be completely out with thermal imaging as I've used. And this is what I mean by the AI ecosystem, where progression in someone's research half the world away can affect someone else's research that doesn't necessarily have to be particularly similar to the original purpose of the program. So I think this demonstrates that AI doesn't actually look like this. This is not the progression we see in society. It actually looks like this. Code written by a human that makes mistakes, but if given guidance, can easily outperform us. AI does not exist in opposition to us. Quite the opposite. It excels where we do not, just as we excel where it does not. And I think to use it effectively, we really need to keep that in mind. So to round things off, I've got a few take-home messages for you. First of all, AI is extremely versatile. So I've taken an algorithm that has never seen thermal images before, and within a short space of a couple weeks, managed to give it a fairly impressive predictive capability for what I need. And then I was easily able to integrate that into larger tools and make a bigger pipeline of detection and then output into data that can be used in this case, the PhD candidate Emma's thesis. So as well, deep learning algorithms are open source. So all the code, all the programs that I've used have been online for free. They aren't hidden behind a paywall. They're hackable, they're shareable. People can take them, do what they want with them, and equally people can take and do what they want with what I have put out there. And I think perhaps most importantly, utilizing AI like this is not scary. You don't need to have extensive computing knowledge. You don't even need to understand how it fully works, because I know I don't. All you need really is some simple coding skills that could be learned in a couple of weeks. That's really all it takes. And failing that, there's innumerable guides and resources available online to help you get to that point. And as an extension of that, if you're on the fence about using AI in your own research, but sort of feel held back by a lack of coding skills, frankly, don't be. I think, if anything, I want you to take away that this presentation shows that that isn't true. I would implore you just to jump headfirst into it, as it's a lot easier than you think. And even out with the functionality of AI, the process of tinkering about with a program itself is quite gratifying, especially when you think of it as you are a small part of a rapidly growing field that is becoming ever more present and important in our lives. Thank you very much for listening. I'll take questions.
Great, thank you very much, Martin. And that your final point there, I love that being part of that bigger development, bigger discussion, and being able to contribute to that in whatever way is such an important part of all of this, and I fully agree. And again, really cool topic. So we have a couple of questions. So the first one is, do you know if anybody else has used or updated your program on GitHub yet?
No, because I only uploaded it a couple of weeks ago. But I'll let you know if people do it in the future.
Yeah, cool, fair. Well, fingers crossed. And the second one is, I think, so that it wasn't me that asked this question, but this would have been my kind of question if I had one. It's saying, knowing what you've seen so far, what's your impression of the chance of AI escaping human control? So I know that you say that it's programmed by humans. Is there a point at which it goes beyond that?
Well, I think, like, basically there will be a point where AI can, well, they already can do tasks better than us. But I don't think there'll ever be a situation where AI, like a Terminator situation, where they'll sort of get out of control and start killing us all. I think it's kind of like a huge philosophical debate and all this stuff. But AI, when we think of AI losing control and being unshackled, I think we often to construe it through the lens of if they would have similar motivations or similar feelings to us, but it's a form of life that is completely alien to us, and so that needs to control and dominate that we would have through millions of years of evolution. I don't think necessarily would translate into at least the applications that we're using. So I think in some spheres of like intellect they will surpass us, but enslave us, I think, is a different question, is a whole different kettle of fish.
It's good to have some positive news. That's good. That's good. Cool. Another couple of questions. One is, do you see yourself using your new programming skills in the future?
Yeah, definitely. So the next question saying about if I'm using Python, I think my answer is going to answer both of them. So yeah, this used Python, and before this, I'd only really used R. So over the last few months, I've been entirely doing this in Python, and that's been a whole learning experience in of itself. And I definitely really love using the coding skills and things. To sort of pin it down to an actual thing that I'll use it for in the future, my flatmate actually um, is looking to make a sort of conjunction between AI and like art. So she goes to GSA and she's looking to do something between music where you put something into the computer, the AI listens and then returns based on what you played. So we're kind of looking how to maybe do something like that. Yeah, that's how I'm in the current, like the near future, going to maybe use these skills. As for like sciencey stuff, I don't know.
So you're using it to make music, but not make science.
Yeah.
Cool. Fair, fair. Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Martin. Again, another really genuinely fascinating topic.
I have one more question of my own, if that's all right. How much work? I was interested in this because of what you've been telling us about the just go and do it advice, and it's not as hard as you might think, which I totally believe you on. But I'm curious, how much work do you think went into the initial algorithm that you picked up and then modified? Was it the RCNN? Was that the right name for it? Am I using the combination of it?
Personally, by me or by the developers?
By the developers. I'm kind of wondering, like, how
there's a whole paper on it and stuff. It was like the RCNN, that mode of neural network was kind of revolutionary, and it's like the basis for the new, like how neural networks are used now. So a lot of effort and a lot of collaboration between like Facebook and things like that. So but I think my overall point would maybe be that even though that is like super complicated and probably millions of dollars have been sunk into getting this running, to use it, the end user doesn't need to really be aware of all that effort. Well, doesn't need to tap into that effort and understand it as well.
It's interesting. I think I get a bit of a feeling from a lot of people involved in coding that a lot of the work is finding new ways of combining a lot of groundwork that's already been laid and then developing often on that rather than necessarily starting with a blank page.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I've done here, is combine like different programs that do different things. The like idea of getting an AI to do something can be just applied everywhere. It's just a case of how you are willing to express that. But yeah.
Thanks very much.
No problem.
Cool. Great. Thanks very much, Martin.
Thanks.